on my sleeping or bed. Some pray
Hi, everybody. Hi. Welcome, everybody, to the stream. So, as you can see, it's Wednesday, but it's not Wednesday, but I'm wearing pink because we have a special guest in the house tonight. So, before I introduce our special guest, I first want to introduce the initiative that we're supporting tonight. So, first of all, before before all that, I am LJ. I am the artistic executive of 16 Bars. So yeah, so first I'll introduce our beneficiary for this event. So we encourage everybody in the audience tonight to donate to them. Our beneficiary is Para sa Sining. So Para sa Sining is a nonprofit, non-government organization that is passionate in sharing Filipino art and culture. They envision themselves build a culture of inclusion through collaborative art. So their project, hashtag Home Not Alone, is a fundraising campaign for artists, cultural workers, and creatives based in Manila, Philippines. So this is to help people whose jobs have been affected by COVID-19 pandemic. So of course we know that a lot of live events have been shut down because of the COVID-19 pandemic and quarantine. So we encourage everybody to help people in the creative sector to by donating to this project. So uh with that said, I will now introduce our special guest for tonight. She made her Broadway debut in 2011 in the Green Day jukebox musical American Idiot, and she's been seen in the Broadway casts in the Broadway cast of shows like American Psycho and most recently Mean Girls as Gretchen Wieners. So we are so lucky to have her tonight to talk about pop Broadway and pop musical. We are so glad to have her here with us tonight to answer questions that we have sourced from people in the audience right now and from people the past few weeks who have been sending us their questions that they want her to answer. So without further ado, our guest for tonight, Krystina Alabado.
Good morning, everyone, from my side of the world.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I took a big cross country of the United States road trip from New York, where I'm based, to my dad, who lives in Arizona, which is on the west coast of the United States. So I spent 4 days driving across the country to enjoy the sun and the pool that is at my dad's house. Which is really nice because I did not want to get on a plane. I was very uncomfortable with that. So I was like, me and my husband will drive. And so we drove.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was
Like making the most of the quarantine time, I
exactly.
guess. So
Exactly.
yeah, I'm gonna so for today, I'm gonna turn things over to you. So I won't be moderating. Christina has your questions, and you can keep sending us your questions on the different live streams. We have staff members um watching for the comments and questions on the different live streams. So feel free to send us your questions. We are so excited to hear what Christina has to say and what all of you in the audience right now have to say. So with that, I'll turn things over to Christina.
Thanks, LJ. Hi, everybody. So, like LJ said, my name's Krystina Alabado. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, which is where I'm at now, which is on the west coast, just south of California, southwest of California, in the middle of the desert here. And I have been living in New York City for the last 12 years, which is crazy. Um, and it's the greatest place in the world. And I love everything that I do. I did make my Broadway debut in 2011 in Green Day's American Idiot. Before that, what started my career was that I did um, a show called Spring Awakening in 2008, but I did the United States national tour of it. So I went on the road when I was 18, traveling the country and doing Spring Awakening for 2 years. And then I moved to New York for good. And I did the shows that he was saying. I did American Idiot. I did American Psycho. I've done all types of off-Broadway shows in New York. I've done national tours, which is a touring company of a show. I'm a voiceover artist, so I'm not sure what if you guys have seen, I'm the voice of Veronica on a show called Voltron on Netflix, which is like one of my favorite things I've ever done in my life. And I do TV and film and all types of things. It's cool being an actor in New York because you sort of, my dream was always Broadway, but then all this other stuff like voiceover and like, TV and film and all this stuff kind of pops up around you, which is really awesome. And it makes for a very awesome and interesting career that I never kind of know what's coming, which I love. So yeah, that's sort of like my story in a nutshell. And I'm so happy to be hanging out with you all. I love Broadway and I love the business, and I think that there's so much to learn, and I love this organization that it's giving you access to the knowledge that I have learned on my journey as an actor. And please ask any questions you have about anything in the comments about Mean Girls, about Broadway, about the business, about pop musicals like we're going to discuss, about singing, about my life, whatever you want to know. So I'm an open book. Yeah. So I'm just gonna, let's see how I'm gonna just kind of go down the questions and just sort of start answering them. And again, just ask me whatever you want. I also, what's funny is a lot of people, my father's from Mexico and my mother's from Lebanon. So, but my last name, Alabado, holler if you hear this. Apparently my last name is maybe very common in the Philippines because so many people ask me if I'm from the Philippines. Is that weird? I was so curious about that so I figured I'd ask you all. But everyone always asks that, and I have to say, oh no, I'm not from the Philippines. I'm Mexican and Lebanese. Anyway, okay, so I'm just going to start with these questions. I see your questions in the chat, and I will totally get to them too. So what we're talking about today is this idea of a pop musical, and what that sort of means, even what the difference between that and contemporary and rock and golden age and all the different types of musicals are. And so my career has been sort of, until Mean Girls, this very specific trajectory of pop, folk, and rock musicals. Like I said, Spring Awakening, if you haven't heard it, listen to it. It's amazing. American Idiot, obviously, was a punk rock musical. And then I went into... what else have I'm trying to think. I did the David Bowie musical, which he wrote right before his death. So that was obviously like a David Bowie musical, and it was amazing. And sort of like my whole trajectory in this has been pop music. I've always felt that my voice lent itself to pop music, even as I was growing up. I just felt that I had a specific tonality. I would sing along to the radio more than I would sing along with show tunes. And so I think that's sort of what made my voice kind of develop into a more pop-centric voice and rock, though, I also grew up singing Astonishing from, Little Women and all types of musicals. So it's sort of been this kind of big mixture. But, a pop musical in general is just a music where it's sort of contemporary and pop is sort of the same in a sense. Because I still think that Mean Girls, which is not as rocky or necessarily poppy as something like Spring Awakening or like American Idiot or even American Psycho, which was a techno musical. But Mean Girls still is a contemporary musical. You still hear the tunes. It feels very current. It feels like there's a world where that could be on the radio, all types of things like that. So that like contemporary pop sound, I sort of put them together. Contemporary pop musicals. And that's sort of what I think even Mean Girls is under the umbrella of. Dear Evan Hansen, even Jagged Little Pill, which is more of like a rock musical. So that's sort of like what I think of as far as like the style of it. And I think that most new musicals are sort of under that umbrella, just the way that musical theater is going right now. You're not hearing as much of the like Music Man sound. You're hearing more of the sound of Dear Evan Hansen, radio songs, trying to bridge the gap between musical theater and radio. Because in the past, if we look back at musicals way, way, way a long time ago, those songs were sung by every artist in mainstream pop culture at the time. So I think there's like this shift, I feel, that like, something like Hamilton, where people listen to it and they're like, wait, that could totally be on the radio. So that's sort of what I think about it. And so that's kind of what I think about the pop rock genre. Someone just asked what pop album influenced you growing up. So my biggest influences as a vocalist when I was growing up was I was obsessed with Selena Quintanilla. She was a Mexican artist in Texas, a Mexican American artist, and so I like really really listened to her, and I like wanted to be her. And I also listened intently to Christina Aguilera, Mariah Carey. Those were the women that I was really listening to, Whitney Houston, when I was growing up. And sort of, you know, I think we all learn by mimicking a little bit, especially when we're younger singing. I think that I was trying to make sounds like them. And I think that's partly why all of us have the voices that we do, because we are listening to what we like. We're listening to what we connect to. So that's sort of like where mine, and then also Sutton Foster, because as much as I was listening to mainstream pops, I also was obsessed with Broadway a little later in my time. My father's a musician, so I grew up singing not Broadway. But once I got to a certain age, I was obsessed with Broadway very quickly, and then I was kind of thrust into it pretty early. So I didn't have the like years in college where I was like obsessed with every single album, which is why I don't know as many musicals as people that do this for a living, because I didn't go to proper college. So you know, I didn't have to study all of the musicals. But those are sort of my biggest influences as far as artists. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep kind of rolling a little bit, kind of popping back and forth. So as far as like, you know, so those were sort of my influences, and I talk a little bit about mimicking. I don't mean it in copying, but if you're interested in starting to transition even from a more classical sound, if you're singing super classical music, if you're classically trained, if you sing opera, and if you're wanting to sort of transition into this idea of pop music, contemporary music, a little less legit, a little more, you know, a contemporary radio kind of sound, my biggest advice is to just start singing with the radio. Start singing with Ariana Grande, with Lady Gaga, with Taylor Swift, with, you know, Shawn Mendes, with any of these people that have this like nice groovy sound. And it's going to get your voice to start, again, kind of transitioning into this other style, a little more like speak singing, a little more straight tone, maybe a little more flipping into your mask instead of having it be a really open, wide sound. And just some of those little things can really help you kind of get into like maybe a pop feel. Let's see, I'm just going to kind of start working down the questions. What is your favorite pop musical? Oh, it's Leona again. Thank you for your questions, Leona. My favorite pop musical at the moment is definitely, I'm trying to think of my favorite one. I mean, I kind of love every show. It's really hard for me to pick one, but I sort of, right now what's on repeat for me, and it's weird, it hadn't been before, was Dear Evan Hansen. That's why I just discussed it again. It's so good. The music is so good. So that's sort of what's on repeat for me, but I'm obsessed with all the shows that I've been in, which is great. And kind of fun because you want to be in shows and sing songs that you like, right? Let's see. I'm going to come back and talk about Mean Girls in a minute. I'm going to sort of like skip the Mean Girls questions, but come back to them, promise. Just to kind of, because I see a lot of Mean Girls questions. This is great. How was working with Christy Altomare in Spring Awakening? She's the loveliest. I love her so much. I haven't worked with her since, which is crazy because sometimes in Broadway, the Broadway community is really small. And so we all sort of pop in and out of each other's lives and of musicals with each other. And so I feel like I see Christy all the time, though we haven't done a show together since Spring Awakening. But she's the loveliest. And, you know, we grew up together on Spring Awakening. Spring Awakening was such a specific time for me in my life because I was so young. Abby also asks what my favorite song from Spring Awakening was. And that score, talk about pop musicals that I'm obsessed with, Spring Awakening forever. And it's funny because you would think that doing it for 2 years, I did like 800 performances of Spring Awakening, that I would have been like, cool, I'm over this. I will never get over how amazing that musical was. Like after this, if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it from start to finish. It is some of the greatest music. And Duncan Sheik, who wrote it, is a dear friend of mine. He also wrote American Psycho that I did in 2016 on Broadway. And yeah, he's just the greatest. Like he's such a good example of a pop folk writer. he wrote music for himself and then transitioned it to the stage. And I think one of the reasons Spring Awakening was so successful was because, like we're talking about, people would listen to Mama Who Bore Me or to any of the songs on there and go, wait, this sounds like music that I listen to every day. And it sort of started bridging this gap again of musicals versus radio music. And I'm still obsessed with Spring Awakening. I love it so much. Let's see. I'm going to kind of pop back over here for a second. Let's see. I loved one of the questions that I had before. If I sound like Kristin Chenoweth, can I still do a pop musical? So again, talking about this transition of legit to pop. I think it is 150 billion% possible for you legit singers to transition into pop music, but you have to understand that it is completely different. And if you sort of accept that and know that, you will get yourself understanding that our voice is like, I always like to say it's like a toolbox, right? So in my toolbox, I have my voice that I love, my pop style. I have legit, I have folk, I have rock, I have punk, I have golden age, I have opera, I have all these different tools, but they are all so separate based on stylizing. You can do all types of different things. And so what I say is, if you're a legit singer, when you're singing a Katy Perry song, when you're auditioning for Mean Girls, when you're auditioning for a show that is contemporary pop, Dear Evan Hansen, you have to take your legit tool, your classical tool, and put it in the toolbox, put it away, and then take out your pop tool. And it is completely different. It's the same voice, but there are different things that you have to do. You can't, in pop contemporary musical, there's just all types of different ideas of placement and of, like I kind of said, a little more straight tone, a little less vibrato, a little narrower, not as wide. And part of kind of transitioning yourself is either working with a voice teacher that can help you find that, or like I said, the easiest way is sort of to get yourself listening to music that is more in that style and listening to the way they use their voices, the way they dip, the way they scoop, the way that's a little messier. It's not as proper. It's a little more chill in the consonants and vowels. And so it's those little tricks that will get you kind of out of legit land and into pop land. And then when it's done, you put the pop tool back in and you take out your legit tool and you get it back. One of the easiest ways, I think, sometimes, and especially now with Zoom, if you want sort of really specifics on how you can get your legit voice a little poppier, I would recommend people like me all over the Broadway community right now are doing Zoom lessons. And you can even schedule a half hour with one of your favorite Broadway performers, save up for it, and ask them to give you little tips and tricks based on your voice as to how to get it in a more pop world. Or again, if you're working with a voice teacher, just sort of ask them to get you more in that arena. So another question I have about this idea of our voice is, evidently a lot of pop musicals make much use of fuller, more chesty, belty tones in their scores. What is the easiest way to learn to belt? So again, what I just said is great. Get a voice teacher if you can afford it, or save up for a couple of lessons, even half-hour lessons. You can book, you can book on Broadway Plus or artistbeyond.com. You can also book directly with the artist. A lot of us have coaching emails and all types of different ways to get in contact with, but there are so many other avenues like Broadway Plus, like Broadway Booker, like Artists and Beyond. All those sites have a list of incredible teachers that you can save up for, all different monetary, some people are less expensive than others, and you can again save up and figure that out. Also, you can reach out to the artist directly, whatever. But I think that part of learning this pop style, right, is to get yourself not even thinking about belting. So I'm a mix belter. I don't belt like, if any of you have listened to The Mad Ones, which is an off-Broadway musical I did last year by Brian Loudermilk, who I know has done a concert for you guys, I heard. He's awesome. And all of his music, if you listen to that score, it's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, that I'm singing, I am mix belting. I power belt a couple of things, but this idea of mix belting is how you sustain and the stamina of not burning out your voice, is that you can't scream through everything. So there's our chest voice and our head voice, right? And our mixed voice is mixing the two together. This idea of power belting is all chest, but I have never been able to do that without like my vocal cords popping out of my throat. So I'm a big mixed belter. And that's a huge asset to me. And that's something that you can, again, ask to work with on a voice teacher. You can listen to artists that mix, like Kelly O'Hara mixes, even though she's mixing in a more legit sound. I'm a big mixer. Most voices that you hear are mixed belters. Erica, if you love Mean Girls, Erica Henningsen on the Mean Girls soundtrack is a total mixed belter, and you can hear it in her sound. It's so healthy, it's clean, but it's still strong. So really listen to that. And yes, The Mad Ones is the new title of Samantha Brown. Yes, John. All the info from John. I love it. Thank you, John. And also John is the one that said book Broadway Plus and Artists Beyond, all types of sites like that, which is great. So write that down and reach out if you save up this summer. Anyway, okay, let's see. So next up, let's sort of talk about, so straight tone versus vibrato. I think sometimes there's a misconception that to sing pop music, you have to sing straight tone. You don't. It's not this idea of like, I have to straight tone and I can't use any vibrato or I'm going to sound too legit. There's a style of vibrato that is different for both styles. So like listening to the way that Ariana Grande uses vibrato versus someone like Audra McDonald. So those two types of vibrato are incredible. They're amazing, but they are completely different. And if you're singing a pop song, it's not appropriate in the style that we're doing now of contemporary musical theater to use a more operatic, legit vibrato. It takes us out of the style. And it sort of shows that you're not familiar with the pop style. So it's not about straight toning. It's about understanding that a wide vibrato that you would use in a classical song needs to be lessened in pop music for the most part, or needs to be spun to be a little more of a pop vibrato, which totally exists. I am a huge straight tone singer, but I also use my vibrato because vibrato means you're open and you're relaxed and your vocal cords are producing very easy and full sounds that are super healthy. So it's not about getting rid of your vibrato at all. It's just about adjusting it, is what I would say. And sprinkling in more straight tone than you would sprinkle in opera. I think straight tone can be a huge asset and a huge tool to singing pop music. So don't be afraid of it. And the big thing with straight tone is breath control and working on your breathing and making sure that you are focusing your breathing. And that's sort of what I have to say about straight tone. So let me get back and I'll answer a couple more questions over here and then I'll hop back to my other one. Let's see. Okay. Oh my gosh, there's so many questions now. You all are the best. Let's see. So I'm going to talk for a minute about Mean Girls. I'm gonna, just so I can answer a couple questions in between and then we'll kind of pop back and forth. I hope this is okay. I'm just sort of like going to answer all the different types of questions. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Catching up. Okay, so Mean Girls, I joined in February of 2019. Yes, so when COVID happened, I had just reached my year at Mean Girls, which I was so excited. I had just signed on to my second year. So whenever Broadway comes back, I will be there again as Gretchen Wieners. Gretchen has been the most fun role I have ever played. Like I said, I've been, as we're talking about today, sort of in these more pop, rock, folk musicals, a little more, just not as girly or mean girlsy as Mean Girls is. I've always been in dramas, broody, dark dramas like American Psycho, very intense, very dark. And so and that hasn't been by my choice. Sometimes in New York and in our business, it's not even getting pigeonholed. It's that I started in Spring Awakening, so everyone assumed that I sang rock music only and did only dramas. And so you sort of have to take this trajectory that is based on the body of work that you have. And then all of a sudden you look back 10 years and you're like, oh my God, I've only done dramas and rock pop musicals. I would love to do something else, and I want people to know I can. And so when the audition for Gretchen Wieners came up, I was so excited because it was something different, and I was so excited to do a comedy and you know, sort of get there. Did someone ask? I'm trying to find about my audition process. I thought that I read that, but maybe I didn't. If you find it, pop it up there. But my even sorry, oh my gosh, you all are so amazing. Thank you so much for all of the questions. I'm like so distracted over here reading all of them. You're all so sweet. But for Gretchen, it was sort of like, you know, it was one of these things where like Gretchen came up and I had auditioned for other roles in Mean Girls before. I had auditioned for Katie a long time ago. And so when Gretchen came up, it was totally different for me because I had put in my head that, okay, I would do Katie or I would do Janice. And then Gretchen came in and I was like, are you guys sure? And they were like, yes, you don't even know how Gretchen-y you are. And I started looking at the material and I was like, oh yeah, totally. This is totally me. And so I started my journey there. So I'm going to take a couple of Gretchen questions now. What's the most difficult part in doing the role of Gretchen every show? And part of the, you know, Mean Girls is the funnest thing, like I said, I've ever done. And the hardest part literally of playing Gretchen is her energy, because she doesn't come down from up here all the time. And so if I'm having like a tired day, we do 8 shows a week on Broadway. I also saw another question that said, how do you get through 8 shows a week? I saw that somewhere. And on Broadway, if anyone doesn't know, we do 8 shows a week. We do Tuesday through Sunday, with Monday being our day off for the most part. And on Mean Girls, we were in a 5-show weekend, which meant that I did 1 Friday, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. So it's like a marathon at the end of the week. And so being Gretchen 8 shows a week has its challenges, just like every role does. But 8 shows a week is hard. And I think when I was younger, I thought I would get used to it and it would get easier. And it is not. It is so taxing on your body, on your voice, on your mind. And the only way to prepare yourself for 8 shows a week is to do 8 shows a week. It's funny, in college programs, and a lot of students that I work with that are trying to pursue this ask, like, how can I get myself ready for 8 shows a week? And there's no answer to it, because there's nothing like it. There is nothing like doing a Broadway musical 8 shows a week, coming up to that 8th show and having a rib out of place, but you have to do the show, or your feet, you know, in Mean Girls, again, one of the hardest parts about playing Gretchen are her shoes. I'm in 4-inch stilettos for 2.5 hours running and jumping, and it's insane. And so that's one of the hardest parts. And I think that like this 8-show week idea is sort of, you learn it by doing. And I always tell young people, the next time you see a show on Broadway or whatever, I always like them to think about like how taxing it is on the actor, because I think that's one of the reasons that, like, I know a lot of people have been asking about bootlegs, because in this time, a lot of people are watching bootlegs. And that doesn't make me mad. It just makes me want to tell the whole world to remember, if you're watching a bootleg of something, you have no idea what state the actor was in. I think that's why we don't like bootlegs, and why the theater community protects from bootlegs, is because you could have caught, if you're watching some show, you totally could have caught someone, like I said, I've done the show with like a rib out of place and I can't breathe. And it's because my cover was already on for something else. So you never know what you're watching, which is why with the bootlegs, grain of salt, and give everybody a pass if they had even a bad vocal show. Like, you know, we've had moments in Mean Girls where there are so many people out sick that we are cutting tracks on stage, and sometimes you have to do the show. And so I always say that about bootlegs, and just knowing that 8 shows is really taxing. Let's see. So I'm just gonna answer a couple other just questions as I see them. What's your dream role? So dream roles are interesting because when I was younger, I had them. Spring Awakening was my dream show. I like wanted to be in that show forever, and that was my dream show. When I was younger, I auditioned a lot for Nina and In the Heights. That was one of my dream shows. More than anything, I wanted to book that. I still want to play that role. Now, I would love to play Eurydice in Hadestown. That's like one of my favorite shows. I'm obsessed with the music. I love it. But in general, these dream roles are there, but my dream role is to originate, to like I did in American Psycho, which was an amazing experience, and what I did off Broadway in so many shows, including the Mad Ones and the David Bowie show, which is doing a show from the ground up, doing a show that someone is writing with you, with them, and getting to go through that experience is so special. I'm going to take a little sip of water. Let's see. How does your portrayal of Gretchen differ when you do the show with different actors? For example, how different is your Gretchen with Taylor's Regina, Renee's Regina, Kate's Karen, Becca's Karen? So that's a great question. I think part of even what we're talking about with pop rock, this idea of pop rock and the tool belt that we have, every time, I think one of the things that you want to do as an actor is be malleable, be able to kind of step into whatever is asked of you. And performing with different actors is one of my favorite things in the entire world. I don't think my portrayal of Gretchen is different, because I think when we set the show up and when I learned it, there is a world. My Gretchen is my Gretchen, and a couple people were asking about Ashley Park too. Ashley Park is like one of my dear friends, and I'm obsessed with her and I love her forever. And when I booked Gretchen, she freaked out because she was so excited that I was taking over. It's because, again, like I said, our Broadway community is really small. And for her to be able to pass the torch to me, who we were friends before, was so special for us. But my Gretchen is completely different from Ashley's Gretchen, which is completely different from Lacey's Gretchen from the movie. And so it's sort of, I also, have a question up here. Someone said something about, is it different for, per role, per person that's done it? And I think the reason that I booked Gretchen in the first place was because I allowed it to be my own. And so going back, and Mean Girls allowed me to be its own. There's no world where anybody copying anybody would produce good work. And that doesn't go along with what I was saying about mimicking voices. That's really about learning a voice type. But as far as acting and portraying a role, you are only going to be good if you are authentically you as the character. And that, I think, is why I was successful in my Gretchen audition, was because I wasn't trying to copy anybody. Yes, I was definitely learning from the people before me, taking little tidbits, saying, ooh, that's great how she does that. I want to do it like that. But I was authentically me as Gretchen, which I think still is the reason that I was successful. Aside from looking for the genre of the show, what factors do you consider in selecting non-MT material for auditions? This one popped up, so I'll answer it. So aside from looking, selecting non-MT material. So picking material for auditions is specific. With Mean Girls, I didn't have to sing anything because in New York, once you get to a certain point in your career, the casting directors know me already. So I get to skip a step. So for Mean Girls, I skipped the step of come in and sing your own song. I went straight to the step of here's the Gretchen material, just sing it. And that happens for most shows now for me. The only reason that happens is because the casting directors know me already. They don't need to hear me sing because they know my voice. I had to do that for many, many years before they trusted that they knew who I was, that my voice was my voice all the time, blah, blah, blah. So when you're picking material for auditions, I always say the most important thing is to sing what you like to sing. I think we get this idea that I have to sing the right thing. I have to sing the thing that is going to make it happen. And yes, you want to sing music that's going to allow the casting directors or directors to hear you and to see the role in you. And so singing music that makes them think of the role makes total sense, and you should totally do. But I think in general, the more important thing is to sing the music that makes you happy and that makes your heart tick. and that makes you want to sing the song and that you connect with immensely. So as far as what to sing, that's sort of what I would go with. And selecting non-empty material is really that. So like if you're looking for a pop cut to have for auditions, go with who you like. My pop cuts are Joni Mitchell and Demi Lovato because I love Joni Mitchell and Demi Lovato. If I loved other artists, I would pick other artists. And so really go down a deep dive of artists, of pop artists, and sing what you like. Sing what fits in your voice. Also sing songs that work on the piano. That's another thing. I think sometimes rock songs don't sometimes translate to piano. So it's good for you to sort of look at that. But a lot of them translate just fine. So that's sort of what I have to say about that. Let's see. Tina asks, any tips on how to improve breathing while singing? It's a great question. So again, in continuing to form our voices, it's all about forming good habits in your singing. I think sometimes it's hard for us to get out of that, out of our bad habits. One of the biggest things you can do to get your breathing in check is to put your hand on your low belly and fill your hand with your belly. And your belly should come completely out. Let me see if I can. So if I'm, where is this? Oh, this is, so if my hand is here, it is full. That is a singer breath. This is, if you're breathing from here, I can't even do it because I have literally learned how to not breathe from up. You need to breathe from down. And the minute that you start shallow breathing, your belting is going to go to shit. Everything's going to get all wackadoodle. You have to breathe from low. And so part of that is not letting yourself off the hook. If you're running a song and you feel yourself start to breathe up here, when you're taking big breaths before big notes, stop, start over, and breathe from low. Breathing up here is totally normal. You are not crazy for doing that. When I get nervous in auditions, I start breathing up here. And it is just, it's not healthy singing, and it's not going to help you get supported. So start practicing your low breathing. Let's see. Do you have any tips for actors who are trying to break into the industry, especially on Broadway? Can you share your experiences when you were first starting? So as far as breaking into the industry, it's different for everybody, right? A good piece of advice that I like to give people starting this up is to try not to look next to you. What is he doing? What is she doing? Why didn't I get that? Why didn't he get that? Why didn't they get that? Why did I not do that? And because it's so singular to your journey. And comparing yourself, it's just not, it doesn't help. So, but with that being said, breaking into the industry, there are so many things you can do, especially now. We're in quarantine, so the industry is on pause. So now is the time for you to get going. If you don't have a website, make a website. If you don't have a reel, make a reel. A reel is just a video of you singing a couple of different songs on a blankish wall, cut together, 30 seconds of each. Do different styles. Get it up on YouTube. Get it up on your website. Other things you can do, get yourself an Actors Access account and look at auditions, or backstage.com. Just start filling yourself with all of this knowledge and information. Save up for voice lessons. If you can't afford voice lessons, take a voice lesson on YouTube. There are so many Broadway actors teaching dance intensives for free on their Instagrams or for donations for amazing causes. There are people like me and others that do career coaching, which is where we'll look at your stuff and say, fix this on your resume, get this on your website, let's make a reel, let's practice a scene. If you feel out of practice because of COVID, get together with friends, look at this amazing community you have, and do a reading of a play together. Keep going with learning and with getting yourself activated in this. And so then once the world comes back, it's sort of keeping going with everything I just said, which is still answering Fiona's question, which is, you have to go, go, go. If you want to break into this industry, your foot has to be on the gas pedal and it cannot let up. You have to go as hard as you can for as long as you can. It's a long game. It is not a short game. And that just has to do with the amount of actors that are trying to break into this business and how difficult it can be. There's an incredible amount of rejection in what I do in the Broadway community. And even at the level that I'm at, I've been on Broadway a bunch of times. I do all types of different things. I get rejected as much as anybody else. In the last year of Gretchen, I've auditioned for other things, other TV shows and musicals and all types of things. And I didn't get one. So I got like 100 no's. If I auditioned for 100 things, I got 100 no's. And so it's about also, Fiona, and anyone else interested in this, getting your brain ready for that rejection and understanding that rejection does not mean that you are not good enough and that you can't do it. What it means is you have to let it light a fire under you to go harder and to work harder and to hone more skills. Again, learn, learn, learn. You are never done learning and pushing. And so again, if you want to break into Broadway, but you never do scenes and you only sing songs, get yourself a scene. Find a scene online and start working on it with a friend. There are just so many different ways that you can do this. So I'm reading questions on the side. So I love this question from Mio, and if I say anyone's name wrong, I'm sorry. Being a person of color, how has your experience in the theater industry been? Are there any moments that stand out to you, whether good or bad? So I have found that over the last 12 years of doing this, that it has changed. Being a person of color and where I'm at in the theater world and TV and everything has changed. I even remember, again, with everything happening with Black Lives Matters in the United States, it's gotten me thinking about not only how I have been as a person and as someone that is learning about all of these themes, but it also has made me think about how I feel as a person of color. And it's not my time right now at all. It is the Black community's time, and to fight for what they need and for us to help them. But in turn, it has had me think about my experience. And one of the things I remember this week was that when I started, my first agent, a long time ago, told me not to be in the sun and to not to get my skin to be as light as possible. And if I did that, then I would book. And if I got any darker, that I wouldn't. And that stuck with me. And I didn't realize for how long. I think part of all of this coming out in the United States with our incredible injustice to the Black people in our country has made me think about little things that I've felt in my life and also how I can get better in general. But that has stuck with me intensely. That first agent told me I needed to be as pale as possible or I wouldn't work. And that took me many years to get over. I'm talking I wouldn't go in the sun. And when I mean I wouldn't go in the sun, I would not go in the sun, like at all, because I was afraid I wouldn't book jobs. Up until like a couple of years ago, you guys, it was really real. And now I'm finally finding that, like, no, I love my brown skin. And when I'm in the sun for 1 second, I get super dark. And I want to be able to do that and feel proud of my culture and background. So no one would ever dare say that to me now. And that's what I'm saying, is that it has changed because people are wanting to learn about my Mexican Lebanese heritage. I'm a first generation and in the United States. And that's really important to people. And I want to express that, and I don't want to hide it. One of Ashley Park posted something on her Instagram a couple of weeks ago about this very similar thing, which is that I hide my culture sometimes because I want to fit in, and I hate that. I don't now as much, but especially when I was younger, I wanted to be white. I wanted to be, fit in and be that type of person. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm a Mexican Lebanese girl. And that should be a good thing. And it is a good thing. And so I feel, at least with me prospectively, it's been a big difference. And I think I have lots of opportunities. Jeremy, how did you learn to riff? I mean, I'm not a great riffer. I'm going to try to fly through some of these questions over the next 10 minutes. Riffing is about air control and not getting too far ahead of yourself. If you're not a riffer, do an easy riff. Oh, that's all you have to do. You don't have to do, just start basic, start chill. Don't overdo it yet. I don't love riffing. I do it, and I will do it if someone writes it for me, but I don't like making my own riffs. And it takes really serious practice for me to get it. But everybody can riff. You just have to sort of break it down for yourself. What else? Are there things you do differently when singing pop and Broadway? Yes, this is sort of what I talked about before, which was pop, again, is a little more speak-singy. It's a little less on voice as far as like singing long, luxurious lines. Sometimes it is. But for the most part, pop, you can really get into the percussive nature of it, really feel the rhythm and the beats and stuff. And Broadway is more of a broad, beautiful, like luxurious sound, though they can come together as well. I think that pop Broadway, you have to remember it's also a Broadway song. So it's sort of like this balance. It's really hard. It is one of those things though, where like listen to artists that you like and musicals that you like and pop musicals that you like that are on Broadway right now and listen to the way that they sing them. And it is a different tool. Like I said, a Broadway song, like Don't Rain on My Parade, you are going to sing incredibly different than World Burn. Like they could not be more different, and that's okay. And they should be different. Let's see, what else? Team looking at questions. If there are specific ones you want me to answer before the end, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to pick random ones. Let's see. There's so many. You all are so great. Thank you so much for all of these. Anastasia, I was going to say Anastasia or Anastasia, however you say your name, did not following the traditional route of going to college bring any obstacles or closed doors in your career? Yes, I was going to talk about this and go back to the other question about starting up in this industry. Again, there's really no right or wrong way to do any of this. I think that I booked the job I wanted after college when I started college, which is why I left college. If I wouldn't have gotten a job like that, I probably wouldn't have left because I needed training. I needed to learn. I needed to be immersed in allowing my voice and my skills to develop. In my route, I got the job and I was a swing, which meant that I had to cover all of the girls in Spring Awakening, which was a huge benefit to me as I was learning because I learned so much by doing. And I also am just that type of learner. I need to do it to understand. And so I will say college specifically, and I say this lightly, but also not, it does not close doors if you didn't go to college. Nobody checks no one checks if anybody graduated college. Half the performers that you see on Broadway probably didn't graduate because they got jobs. So it's the door closes if you don't go to college and think you're done learning. That's when the door closes. You will never, ever be done learning and getting better. Ever. I am still learning, getting better, and that will never end because there's always someone that I want to be more like or that's voice is better than mine and I want to get there. And so this idea that we're done and ready to go to Broadway will never happen. It is a constant continuing of flooding yourself with information and flooding yourself with learning and new skills and that will never stop. So the obstacle that I would, I guess, hit without a college degree would be if I decided not to do this and wanted to start a different career. I don't have a college degree. Though I think in the United States, it's sort of changing in a little bit. But I would probably go back to school if I decided to change careers, which I'm not planning on doing right now. Let's see. What are some pop Broadway specific techniques? I mean, sort of things that I've already said, which is incorporating and sprinkling in a little bit of straight tone, scooping more, being a little less particular with what you are. It's not as rigid in a way, but it's really tricky. It's like you have to use your voice in a way that feels like an extension of you. That's what I like to tell my students that I'm teaching how to sing pop or working with. And if anyone also is interested in taking a lesson with me, you can reach out to me at krystinacoaching@gmail.com. And we can talk about your specific voice and stuff. But I think that part of that technique is learned by doing and is learned by allowing yourself to sound like you. And not that you don't sound like you when you're singing classical, but sometimes for me, when I'm starting on a pop song, I almost sing it first so I can hear how it sounds, just me talking as naturally as possible. And then I sprinkle in singing. So you can start with that. I think that that's a good way to like think about it. And then honestly, like just do what you can to get yourself sort of like shaked out of this idea of singing how you think it should be. Just sing it like you're on stage. Sometimes I also like to tell my students, take a hairbrush and use it like a microphone and just rock out, jam out, and feel it in you, like you are a rock star on stage. Let's see. Fiona asks, does it make a difference in casting if you were a professionally trained dancer aside from being a good singer, or could you just learn things as you go? Again, no one is checking about your, like what you are trained in necessarily. People want to see you do what you do. And I think that everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. And I think that you should go with your strengths and know that, you know, I am a singer actor. I was not a trained dancer, though I have found myself dancing a lot in my career. I know that I'm never going to be at the front, except for in Fearless Mean Girls, which I got because I smiled a lot and I worked my butt off, but I was not the best dancer in the room. That was all energy, which is why any of you non-dancers out there, it is possible. You're not going to get all the steps right, but if you act the crap out of the song and just energy, it'll take you far. But I think I know that I'm never going to be in the dancing ensemble. That's just not the skill that I have, and that's okay. I can go with my strengths. Popping back to this other one over here, let's see. How do you prepare for an audition? Are there any differences in the way you prepare for auditions for pop musicals as opposed to auditions for other kinds of shows? That's a question that I had on my email. I think that in prepping for auditions, it's about finding yourself, like I said, in the character. And if it's a pop musical, allowing yourself, like I said, to really sing the song as you would speak it. I always tell my students, write down all the lyrics of the song you're working on. Write them down. And then speak them like a monologue. And it's going to sound so crazy. But the thing is it is 50% singing, but it is 50% acting, if not more about the acting. If you sing a song like the greatest singer of all time with a dead face, I literally don't care, and neither will casting. Casting cares about a singer that sings well. Yes, that is incredibly important, and you can only get far if you are a good singer in musical theater. But if you must act the song and treat it as importantly as singing. And those are the people that bust through, are people that understand that. So really think about that in your audition prep. What else? How do you balance being in service to the story of a song as opposed to singing well? Jeremy, that's the whole thing. You must look at both. And you work on the singing so that you allow yourself good habits, so that you know placement and breathing and all that, and you don't have to think about it all the time. But the minute that you are doing the song for an audition, for a performance, you better let all that singing stuff go, or I'm telling you, no one will care. Because I had a teacher once tell me, everyone in New York that's pursuing this is a good singer. Get over it. The people that do it and do it well and get past all of this are the people that act through the song. And so it's hard. And the balance of acting and singing is very difficult because, and I have to tell my kids this all the time that I teach, there are a billion things we have to be thinking about when we're singing. Placement, jaw tension, not singing and straining, singing in our mask, breathing correctly. And I am telling you that you must balance how to do that and still act the song. When I'm working on anything, so like I'm in all the time for Eliza. Again, people wanting to hear about rejection. I have been in for Eliza in Hamilton 20 times over the last 8 years, at least. Never get it. Never get it. Make it to the end, never get it. But when I work on that packet, it's incredibly difficult music. When I work on Burn, I'm like, oh my God, this song is so hard and so long, and I am already out of steam. But I practice it as I act it every time. I rarely am practicing songs without acting them because the acting informs the way that you're singing. Sometimes you need to get out of your own way and out of your own head of like, am I breathing right? Am I placing right? Am I tension? That stuff is so important. But when you're actually singing the song and acting it, all that stuff gets in your way of producing sounds that are good and healthy. So sort of get out of your own way and start practicing your songs with vocal health in mind, with all this stuff in mind. But what are you doing in the song? What are you saying? What are you acting about? What are you talking about? What do you want? And put that at the forefront of your mind as well. I have time probably for like one more question, or maybe two if I can talk really fast. Does anyone see one over there that's reading the questions? Let's see. Are there, Jeremy, another great question. Are there techniques that are specific to rock musicals that you wouldn't generally use in pop musicals? Yes, that's the thing about these styles, right? They're all different. Folk, pop, punk, rock, like every single style is completely different. And you're going to use different techniques for each. With rock musicals, you can really go on the edge and use your edge and cry voice. You can also like growl a little bit more. It's really aggressive and like percussive in rock. And pop is a little more like scoopy and maybe a little cleaner compared to rock. But again, all the best advice I can give all of you asking about styles is to go listen to artists sing in these styles. If you don't know anything about folk, go listen to every Ingrid Michaelson song that is available to you or every Joni Mitchell song. If you don't know anything about punk, go on a deep dive of punk. If you want to hear more pop music, go listen to everything pop, every artist on the radio, and just listen to the way that they sing and the difference between Joni Mitchell and Katy Perry, the difference between Journey, which is an 80s rock band, compared to One Direction, which is a pop rock band. Listen to all those styles and really allow them to sink in. Anyway, guys, I think that's all the time I have. But I wanted to thank you all so much for joining me and all of your amazing questions. The biggest advice I can give to all of you is that you being here is part of your journey as an actor, as a singer, as an artist, as an audience member, whatever. And, you know, I hope that you took some of the things that I said and can learn from them and keep pushing with your specific journey and career as a performer. And don't forget that you are special as you, and the way that you get more out of this in life, either professionally or for fun, is by knowing that you are enough and that your talents are special and specific to you. And that's what makes you bookable. And that's what makes you have a good life in artistry. And I think I think we get a little bit distracted by, needing to get the results. I need to get the show. I need to book. I need to do this. But we really do this because we love it, right? It's so, so important to remember why we do this. It's all about our heart and love. And I wish you all the best of luck. And thank you so much for having me. And reach out if you want to take a lesson or have a conversation to my email. And yes, best of luck to all of you. And thank you so much for having me.
So we'd like to ask everyone to give a digital round of applause to Krystina for joining us tonight. Thank you so much, Krystina. Like me and the other 16 bars folks, we're all talking about how productive like all of your answers have been. So we are so happy that you came on and you shared all this wisdom with us. And I mean, we're excited to see what you're gonna be doing next. So for everybody, like Krystina's coaching email is down there. And also just we can also put up links to her personal site and her coaching site so that y'all can go to Krystina for your coaching needs. So thank you so much, Krystina. We so value the time that you spent with us, and we are so excited to see what's next.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for having me, you guys. Bye.
Bye. All right. So that was Krystina Alabado of musicals such as Spring Awakening and Mean Girls and American Idiot and American Psycho. So we were so happy to have her tonight. It was such a great experience to hear all this coming from Christina. Um, before we go, we have one last part tonight. We want to introduce the initiative that we're supporting for this event again. So that is Paris Asining's Home Not Alone. So tonight we have a representative here to discuss what they're doing and how you can help people in the creative sector whose jobs have been affected by COVID-19. So take it away. Yeah,
Hi. Hello.
there we
Okay. Hello, I'm RB from Paris Sining. That means for the arts in Filipino. We are a non-stock, non-profit corporation based in Manila, Philippines, with the vision of building a culture of inclusion through collaborative arts. We started Home Not Alone, a fundraising campaign for artists, cultural workers, and creatives. This is to help the Filipino artist community who are affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. For phase one, our goal is to provide a subsidy of $100 to 50 workers in the creative sector. And as of today, we've collected enough to subsidize 32 artists. Yay! With your help, we can reach our goal and subsidize 18 more. To donate to the cause, please visit gogetfunding.com/home not alone. Or for more information about Paris Sining, please like and follow Paris Sining on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you very much, 16 Bars, and thank you, Christina. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, RB. So again, for everybody, the name of the project is up here, Home Not Alone. That is a project, an initiative by Para sa Sining. They will be, they have already collected enough donations for 32 people in the creative sector, and they want to be able to donate at least 100 USD to 18 more so that they can subsidize at least 50 workers in the creative sector. So we
Yes.
do encourage everybody here tonight to donate to Home Not Alone. We will be posting as well their information so that everybody can donate what they can to people in the creative sector. So thanks,
Thank
RB.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So that has been Crossing the Divide, a pop Broadway Q&A with Krystina Alabado. We hope that everybody here enjoyed Christina's answers, and we hope that everybody got a lot out of it, because I mean, personally, me and the other people at 16 Bars have been talking, and we were really happy about your questions. So we saw all your questions, and we wanted to feature as many of them as possible, but of course, there are limitations to the time. But we're so happy for we're so grateful for everybody that participated here tonight. And I guess we'll be announcing our next project as soon as possible, as soon as that's possible. So with that, I am LJ Galvez. I am the artistic executive of 16 Bars. Please follow us on our social media channels. That is here on our Facebook here on our Facebook page. We have an Instagram and Twitter. Those are at 16 Bars PH. And thank you. Thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. Bye.